The point of this type of energy is to show you where you need to do the work. And the only way that you can do that is if you take a step back first and identify, is this my energy? Is this not? Am I going to perpetuate this energy or am I not? Can I forgive this person for acting the way that they did?
Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. My name is Annette Deleu. I'm an Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. What you will be hearing today are real sessions with my clients. All names have been changed for privacy, and of course, with their permission, we are privileged to hear these beautiful stories to allow us a small glimpse into the Akashic Records. If you would like to book a session with me and be part of the podcast, please feel free to head to my website at infinitesoullove.com. When you book your session, just make sure to check the box that you would be interested in having your session utilized for the podcast.
For those of you who really wanted to sign up for Soul Discovery Workshop, I have great news for you. You can head to my website, and on the homepage, if you go to the little box that describes Soul Discovery Workshop, there is a button there that says sign up for the waitlist. I'm currently in session with Soul Discovery Workshop, and I will be running another one later on this year. So if you want to be in the know and want to be the very first one to sign up for the next session of Soul Discovery Workshop online, feel free to head to my website at infinitesoullove.com. Go to that homepage, click sign up for the waitlist, and send your email, phone number, as well as your first and last name. And I will make sure you get that registration email as soon as the next course is ready to launch. In addition, you will get a discount code for the early bird sign up. So if you are interested, head over there now. This is an incredibly content-rich episode. We talk about so many different things. We talk about not being influenced by what other people want for your life. We talk about soul family and soul groups and what those are in the scheme of your three-dimensional life. We also discuss when we connect to the higher realms, sometimes we don't want to leave. When we connect to loved ones on the other side, sometimes we don't want to leave them either. One of the last topics we discuss is talking about toxic energy and how that shows up in your life and other people's lives, and what that means from an energetic perspective. So tell me, what brings you to the session today?
Just to ask questions about my Akashic records of what you know. Also certain people in my life that are dear to me, and my business. I went through a huge transition from technology for 30 years to hypnosis, and it was a huge jump, which was kind of scary and exciting, all those emotions mixed into one.
Sounds good. Now, have you had an Akashic Record session before?
I have not.
Just to give you a brief rundown of how the structure goes. Basically, I'm going to dive into a little bit of a meditation. We're going to do a chakra scan. Oftentimes, what I can see in your chakras can tell us like what might be going on in past lives, what may have had an effect on your current life, that kind of thing. We're going to do that, and then we're going to dive into the records. And basically, I ask the guides all the questions that you want to ask, and they tell me where we need to go first. Okay. They weave the story. So basically, they tell us what you need to know first, and it's beautifully orchestrated the way that they guide us. So I just let them take the lead.
I have one question. When you channel guides, are they my guides or are they yours as well, or a collective?
It's usually a combination. I don't really ask who it is specifically when I'm channeling. Most of the time, it is, though, my Akashic guide. My Akashic guide gives me the information or filters the information. When it is somebody specific that you need to know, they will tell me. But for the most part, it is Zakula, my Akashic guide. There have been times when I've channeled like a collective, like I've collectively channeled the Council of Light before in sessions. And that's because the Council of Light was connected to the client. That's the information they gave me. So if it's important for you to know, they'll tell you. If it's not, you can just assume that it's either my guides or your guides. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I can tell usually when the energy is different. It comes in differently and I'm like, okay, who is this? So yeah. All right. One of the things that I'm seeing is that they're showing me this side view of your chakras. By far the brightest chakra right now that you have going on is your root chakra. That energy is extending like way past your energy field. And this has to do with your stability, your sense of safety and security and where you are in your life. It also in the shadow side also has to do with fears, feeling unsafe, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not seeing like too much of that going on, but I do see some fears coming up. What's happening is that because your root chakra is so strong and so completely shining and it's got everything that it needs, when you do have a fear, it's like that is the first and foremost thing that comes up. If I can describe it correctly, you feel stable, you feel secure, you feel safe, everything is going well, you're moving forward. And then a fear comes in and it's almost like it loads it like a cannon and it takes that fear, loads it into your root chakra and like shoots it out to the forefront. There are times when the fear can be crippling, even though you're moving forward and everything is going really, really well. It's just this shadow side that keeps on coming up. Is this from a past life? It is. Okay. That's why we need to address it. Okay, cool. All right. It's fears of moving forward into the unknown. Yeah. And it's also a lack of trust. Okay. So then let's move that energy up into your sacral chakra. That's tied into the previous life we're going to look at. Okay. So your sacral chakra is not very bright at all. It's actually in comparison to your root chakra, it's quite dim. What they're saying to me is that this is actually what is having an effect on the root chakra. And this is having to do with the past life. So your sacral chakra, that is going to be your divine feminine, your manifestation energy, your creation energy, your ability to receive. Your solar plexus chakra is partially blocked. The other part that isn't blocked is quite bright, almost white instead of yellow. And that says giving your power away, not being able to draw boundaries where you need to draw boundaries. And this is for your own self-care. You're there almost too much for other people. You want to be a little bit more discerning as to how often you're exerting your energy for others who maybe don't really want to do the work. If they don't want to do the work, then you need to be able to take a step back and say, okay, when you're ready to do the work, I'll help you. But right now, I need you to respect that I have this boundary because I can't exude any more energy. Of course, say that in your own words, but like that is the boundary that needs to be set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then let's move that energy up to your heart space. I don't know what that means. Can you show it to me in a different way or explain to me what that means?
Are you asking me?
Oh, no, sorry. I'm asking my guides. They're basically showing me a visual of I don't know how to describe them. Like I saw them down in Mexico, actually. It's like these wind mobiles. They're metal and they shine. Let's say there's a small heart in the center and then the heart gets bigger, 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 bigger. And it's like each heart is separate. So they all spin at different intervals. And so it just kind of creates this really beautiful spinning motion of the heart. They've never shown it to me that way before. And so I don't know what that means. Do you want to just channel the information? Yes. Okay. Thank you. The image that we are giving regarding her heart chakra has to do with how she is showing up in her heart space. She's showing up as very shiny and very glittery and very loving in a lot of ways, but it isn't full of depth at this time. She's not showing up for most people in her life at this time from the core of her heart space. There is constant movement. There is constant shifting and changing. And so it is hard for her at this time to identify where that core is and what is happening with her heart space. There's a constant motion, constant changing. And on the outside, it looks very shiny and very beautiful. But on the inside, there's instability and uncertainty. And where that is coming in has to do with her relationships. It has to do with her relationship to self. It has to do with everything in her outside world. As her inner world starts to come together, her outside world starts to crumble and starts to look different from what she thought it would be. This is not something from a past life. This is something in her current life and her current energy. And this is something we will address. Your crown chakra and your third eye look really good. They're functioning well. They're open, but I'm hearing they're getting bottlenecked. So all the information and all the energy is getting bottlenecked at your heart space. And actually even higher than that, sometimes it's getting bottlenecked at your throat. Communication is being distorted or stopped by lack of interpretation. What does that mean? Oh, okay. So you're interpreting the information from your mind, not from your heart. And that's because of the instability of the heart. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And let's move that energy down into your throat chakra. And this is from a previous lifetime. And I'm hearing choking on the words, not able to get the words out, not able to communicate, not able to stand up for who you are. And I do want to make a note, and this is something that they're telling me to tell you. When we're doing the chakra scan, this has to do with your chakra state over the course of many, many lifetimes. It's showing me the state of your chakras based on the context of your previous lifetimes and what's going on currently. For example, if you would have gotten a chakra scan from somebody who is checking the state of your chakras in the current moment, it would actually be quite different from what I'm seeing. And the reason for that is because your current state of your chakras is different than if you're looking at it from a collective point of view, cumulatively over the course of many past lives. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's something that they wanted me to tell you to make the distinction. Okay. I want to thank Akula for being here. Thank you, as always, for joining us. I want to thank Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here as well. Thank you. Today we are opening up the Akashic Records. Thank you. Okay. So of all the things that we need to cover today, where do we need to go first? Okay. Heart chakra. Okay. They're asking me to ask you about some of your relationships that you have going on right now in your life and how they are relating to your ascension, your changes, like everything that you've been going through in that transition. So you were saying you went from like a corporate job then to doing hypnosis and things like that. So that is a big energy shift. How was that awakening process for you? Was it turbulent? Was it easy?
It took a while. Then it was like a switch flipped, and I felt like I had support of my twin, my boyfriend, like more than ever. And then it just unraveled seamlessly. And I knew that there was going to be the last day, and my head was around it. My heart was around it. I found an office, and everything seemed to fall into place so well with business. And I guess the trust part comes in with, do I have it to keep it going?
This is where it's coming in terms of not being able to fully ground into your heart space. The challenge with this is that when you are in a space where you are looking for that outside support, and whether that is outside support to your guides or whether it's to your boyfriend, to your twin, it doesn't matter where that's coming from. When you start to have that feeling that you need that support, that is where the universe is going to start taking away that support. Now, it doesn't mean that these people are going to leave your lives or anything else like that. Like, it's not that. When we rely on something and then it becomes too much of a crutch, then basically the universe steps in and says, okay, no, you need to do this yourself, because you need to believe in yourself and you need to trust yourself and your higher self, your intuition, everything that you're doing. They're saying to me that it's starting to happen a little bit, but it hasn't fully started to unfold yet, but it will. Like, basically the universe is kind of taking the training wheels off right now. They're saying that, yes, they've been giving you tons of support in general, and that support is going to start to fall away. What can that look like? Well, it can look like a perception even. It may not even be that anything in your outward experience necessarily changes, but it can feel like it does. So what I'm feeling is the uncertainty. I'm feeling the energy shift. So you might feel like your energy is shifting and changing in such a way that it feels different than it used to. Your relationship starts to shift and change. This is not necessarily a bad thing. It is part of growing pains, though. It is part of what needs to happen in order for the shift to happen. And not everybody shifts at the exact same time. We'll get into your relationships in a moment, like why you chose these particular people in your life. This is on a soul level, why you chose to be incarnated with your twin brother. These things will help you understand what your connections are and what you're here to help each other with. Okay. The thing that I'm seeing though is that you are the leader in the group of people that you are surrounded by. And so in order to break out of the norm and what you have always done and what has always been your trajectory, you're going to have to move into new energy without that support, without that knowledge that, oh yeah, okay, this is a nice cushy landing. Like I know this energy, I know this, and I'm good with going into this place. And they're showing you to me almost like you're surrounded by your friends and your family, and everybody's just giving you love. And then you are almost exploding out of the top of the crowd, and you're going so much higher, and everybody's just on the ground looking up at you, and they will follow you, but it'll take a little bit of time. There were things that they needed you to understand about how you needed to proceed and move forward. And in order to move forward, you're going to need to strike out on your own, if you will. This might mean doing things that may seem out of the ordinary for you. It may seem out there in comparison to what you have done in the past. And that's where they're guiding you right now. The thing that is scary about this is that sometimes when we're in this position, we think that we're going to lose what we have. But in fact, once you dive in to this new energy and you start really going within and really connecting with your heart space on a regular basis, you will then cultivate deeper connections with the people that you love, deeper connections with new people that you meet, deeper connections with friendships with everybody in your entire world. Right now, you're still connected to so much of the 3D world that is the part that's going to kind of start to melt away a bit. Okay, I'm going to pause here. I just want to ask you, does this make sense? Do you need any clarification? Do you have any questions?
It makes sense to a degree because over the last, we'll say 9 months, I've dove into something completely different. When I opened my business and I added sound therapy, vibroacoustic sound therapy, brain tap technology, I have a very spiritual approach. And then there were some boundaries I did have to set with working with certain people, and I'm still working on the boundaries. I've found myself stepping back from leaning on my boyfriend so much. He has been great support, believes that I can do it. There's that trust in myself that in reality, bills have to get paid and I'm the sole provider of that. Mm-hmm. That's where I think it gets scary because I've been a business owner before and it didn't go well.
And this is something that will also help, which is if you're able to take a step back from that aspect of your relationship, meaning you relying on him relying on you. When you start to disentangle, and I don't mean physically, I mean energetically. This is an energetic thing. So you're going to really set the intention that you're going to focus on you and your business and what you need to do and let him focus on what he needs to focus on. And I understand that there is the practical aspects of money and things like that. Working on things energetically costs you nothing. It costs you no money. You don't have to worry about, okay, well, if we're going to make this decision, then we have to take this leap and we have to do this. It's not a physical thing. It is working on, I'm going to be focused on manifesting what I want for the business. And I'm not going to focus on worrying about money. I'm not going to focus on worrying about what your boyfriend's doing and what his fulfillment is, because that's not your job. That's his job. And that's why they're saying that you're going to explode out and all of your close people to you in the 3D will see that as an example. They will see it as, oh, wow, I see how she's doing that. Everybody has their own path. So it's not like they're going to do the same thing, but it's like they're going to take that energy and they're going to be able to apply that to their own lives. So it sounds like it's a lot of pressure, and it may feel like a lot of pressure that you're the one that has to lead the way. But they're telling me that we're going to find out a little bit further into the session why this is your path. And this is something that your soul just naturally does. This is something that you're very gifted at doing. And you have been holding yourself back quite a bit due to the fact that you are trying to stay in the same comfort zone that everybody else is in. Okay. So then do we need to go into the sacral chakra? Yes. Okay. All right, let's take a look at that past life, please, and so we can clear that. They're showing me a timeline, and they're showing me that this is something that you've been working on for quite a while. I'm seeing like 17 lifetimes ago, 85 lifetimes ago, 120 lifetimes ago. You got these benchmarks along the timeline of how many lives you've been working on this particular piece for your sacral chakra. Is there a trauma that she has in her sacral chakra? It's not necessarily a trauma, but we're going to show you a lifetime that shows you what she's been working on. And so she can know and understand why her sacral chakra is so under functioning at this moment and has been for quite a few lifetimes. Okay. Got it. Oh, okay. So what they're showing me is that the reason why it's been in intervals that you've been working on this is because you work on it and then you get frustrated that it's not working or that it's not going fast enough. And then you basically incarnate in the next lifetime with an entirely different purpose. Over the course of time, been like, okay, I'll work on it, but I'll work on it later. It's almost like you've been procrastinating it. You've had a lot of things that you've wanted to do as a soul. So it's like, it wasn't a big deal to procrastinate it because you were like, oh, well, I can work on this other thing for the time being. It's like having multiple projects in the works. And then you're just like, I'll leave that one till later. And I'm going to work on these other things right now. And that's exactly what you did. But this is the lifetime that you need to master this. It is part of your life purpose in this lifetime is to master this. They're showing me where you left off the last time you were working on this. I'm seeing chickens everywhere. You're a female. You're working on a farm, you're feeding the chickens. You hear your father call from the house. He's giving you orders, basically. So you show up at the house and you say, yes, daddy. And he says, I want you to go clean that field over there. Something about the cows. You're basically taking mental notes. He's telling you, go do this, go do this, go do this, go do this. I see you saying, yes, daddy, and you're curtsying to him and you go and you do it. You have 2 brothers in this lifetime. Your brothers do the same. Well, not the same, but they do different chores than you do, but they do chores, but they seem to get all of their work done within the first few hours of the morning. So they're up at 5 a.m. and they work until 7 or 8 a.m. and then they're done and they have the whole day and afternoon to fish or hang out with dad or do whatever they want to do. And you basically have chores from morning till night. Like you don't stop working. You're constantly working. And the energy that I'm getting is almost like you're a robot. You almost have no feelings about it. You have no feelings about the fact that you're just basically working all day, every day, and every day is the same. And you don't really have any relationships. You don't have anything else going on except for your family. You do occasionally look at your brothers and see that they are laughing and having fun with your father. And you wish that you could do something else, but your passions and your desires and your creativity is almost like just non-existent.
It feels similar to what I'm going through now.
Okay. And I'm now seeing a mother figure in the picture at this time. I'm hearing that she died in childbirth. And I'm hearing your father say something to the effect of like, I don't know what to do with a girl. It's like he doesn't know how to relate to you, and you never showed him how to relate to you. You never showed him who you were. All you did was you showed him respect. You showed him love from a very distant perspective of how a daughter would love a father who just basically barks orders at her. So where did this lack of empowerment come from? Where did this originate? Does it matter where it originated? It doesn't. It is something that originated one of her first incarnations on this planet. It was literally thousands of lifetimes ago for her. These types of things typically don't last that long when it comes to a trauma. But it wasn't a trauma necessarily that caused this lack of inspiration, the lack of creativity, the lack of wanting to break out of what you're in. It is a desire to make things easy. There was a decision that her soul made as an incarnated human a long time ago that if I just comply, that life is easy. And so that got reiterated over the course of time. But what that does is that continually gives your power away to somebody else to make decisions for you about what your life is going to be and what you are going to do on a day-to-day basis. What you needed an experience that would inspire you to break out of that. And you've had that to an extent over the course of several lifetimes. This is the lifetime that you will break out of it. You're already on the path. path, it is a decision that you need to make. We would like you to question everything. Who in your life is telling you what to do? And this doesn't have to be in a malicious or disconnected way. There are times when our loved ones tell us what to do because we think it's best for us. They think it's going to make us happy, or they think that it's the most loving thing to suggest, when in fact, it may not be aligned for you. It may not be aligned for where your soul wants to go. And oftentimes that loving guidance that is offered and not asked for is some of the most insidious to unravel. Just consider some of the simple things in your day to day. Something a partner might say, oh, why don't you go get a massage today? It'll make you feel better. Oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. That seems rather innocuous to anyone listening to what that would be. But let's say in your heart and in your soul, you know that day you need to be inspired and you want to go take a walk in nature, or you want to do something else. You don't want to be relaxing on a massage table.
That happened recently. Just that.
The massage?
And I went for a walk instead.
That's amazing. I love that. Awesome. Okay, so that's exactly the type of thing that they are trying to get you to do on a regular basis. Okay. It is about checking in with your heart and saying, okay, what is going to light me up inside? What is going to really spark those creative juices? What is going to make me feel like I am 100% connected to who I am in my soul? So my question to you is, when that happened, what was your response to whoever suggested that?
That sounds good. I got some other things to do. And I did. I went for a 2-hour walk and just enjoyed the ocean and the beach and the boardwalk and nature, trying to sort through some of my clients that cross boundaries. And when I channel, the answer I get is, for a particular person, no, you're not her babysitter. She's not doing the work like we talked about earlier. You're guilted by the husband. This isn't the ideal client. Also, taking a step back from another particular client who has pushed himself to be a friend and a financial supporter, and just setting down boundaries, which he appears to cross continuously with the text messages I say to limit. So I'm working on those boundaries, yes, following my heart more than my head, which most of my career, it's been with my head, figuring out problems. And that's an adjustment.
Absolutely. The one thing that they want you to really connect with is also how you communicate to the other person when they make those suggestions. Okay. Of course, you can communicate in a very loving way and say, thank you for the suggestion. In the future, if I'm looking for suggestions, I will ask you for suggestions. But in the meantime, I'm really trying to practice connecting in with my heart and asking my heart what it wants. If you can respect that, I would really appreciate that space to be able to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't have to say it in those words. You can say it in whatever words you choose. But it's that kind of energy of saying, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is what I'm trying to do, and it's making it harder for me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in energy of how you're communicating that is basically, if you're saying, oh, thank you for the suggestion, but I'm going to go do something else. What that can do is it can give a signal to the other person, oh, thank you for the suggestion. Keep doing that, please. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what you potentially don't want. You can say, I would love your suggestions and input, and I will let you know when those suggestions and input, or whether I want to brainstorm something, that kind of thing. Like, I need to start working on my own self-trust. So I need the space to allow me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where, when they were saying things can get a little challenging sometimes with relationships, when you start putting these types of boundaries up, and when you start actually changing the way that you operate, it does take a little bit of time for people to adjust to the new way that you're showing up in the world. Just be aware of that. Know that it can be triggering to some people. And I'm hearing specifically potentially your kids. It may be a little triggering for them if you start operating in a different way, because they're used to mom being a very specific way. And like, big changes are often very jarring. Just pay attention to that. Don't worry about having to mitigate or having to control their experience and their triggers are going to be theirs. Keep in mind with your kids, you signed up for the life that you have. They signed up for the life that they have, and they signed up for you as a parent. So the experiences that they're going to get from you are exactly the experiences that they signed up for. Don't worry about all of that. That'll all work out the way that it needs to. It's just the challenge of really thinking about how somebody else is going to react to you setting boundaries or you following your heart into what you want to do sometimes can prevent us from actually doing it. They're telling me also this is a little bit of preparation for you. Take these words for what they are right now. If some of the things that I'm saying are like, well, I don't know how that's going to show up in my life, or I don't see that showing up in my life right now. Some of this is for as things unfold. So just kind of keep that information filed in the back of your head. So when those situations do arise, you're going to be able to handle them in a way that you're going to be like, I remember this. Okay, I know how to handle this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything that we need to clear in her sacral chakra? There's nothing that we need to clear in the sacral chakra. It is going to be a constant practice for her to be able to access this creative energy, to access the divine feminine, to be in her receiving energy, to be able to receive with grace and with love. This is something she will be practicing almost every day for the rest of this lifetime. That is how she will master it. And that is what she is going to bring to her clients. This is one of the most important things she's going to be teaching her clients as well. I'm almost seeing the main beacon of your business being like a bright orange sun almost. It's like this beautiful connection of the orange chakra, the divine feminine, and the sun being a representative of the divine masculine. You know, it's like this combination of this balance between both.
My logo looks like that a little bit with 4 shades of orange.
Beautiful. Well, there you go. You're already on that path.
Yeah, the seasons of change.
You had questions about your business specifically.
Mm-hmm.
What questions do you have?
And what my soul wants me to know about it, because there's that fear of failing. And I think we covered, if I work on my sacral chakra, it will just naturally unfold on its own. And I have technology to help me with that, even from the sound bed to a brain tap device, even ways to meditate and to even get deeper using a sound cushion. Is that going to help propel me in the direction I need to go?
No. And it's not to say that those are not going to help you, because they certainly do. They are definitely tools that can help. Your path forward is much more simple than that. It is literally going to be everyday decisions. It's going to be everyday experiences. It's going to be exploring the sacral chakra, what it means, how you embody it. It is going to be checking in with your heart space every single day, asking your heart what it wants. Do you do that currently?
Not every day. No.
Okay.
I can say that honestly, I'll brainstorm. And for instance, I had a client and he was just so pushy, and then the guilt trips. And I'm just like, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. I'd ask my mom, she's like, well, it makes his wife happy. Like his wife has dementia and cannot be hypnotized, and I'm a hypnotist. She cannot have life coaching, and that's what I do. Or the sound brain tap. She's uncomfortable with it, so no. And when I channeled, I heard he just wants a babysitter. He's making you feel that way. So that was going against my mother. Usually I take her advice, but it was sitting with my heart on what I really wanted, and I could feel it in my body. I could feel my heart throb and choke. And my mind said, yeah, but she's happy. But my heart was saying, this isn't making you happy. You've got bigger things to do.
Yes. Yes. And the really interesting thing is that the universe will give us multiple situations like this until we start actually drawing the boundaries. So I've gone through a couple of different bouts of this over the course of time. One of which was, I'm not joking you, within 1 week, I had 7 different clients write to me an email saying, hey, I know it's outside of session time, but can you just answer this one question? The first one that came in was a client that I know very well that I've been working with for years. Initially, I was like, okay, well, we have a session coming up. So I wrote and I said, hey, the first thing that I'm getting is this quick little thing, and we can cover the rest on our session later on this week. So that was the first answer. And then moving forward, the next email that came in, I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. Okay. I basically had to write an email to that person and said, hey, this is outside the scope of our sessions. We can certainly cover this in a session if you should choose to book a session. And then by the seventh person, I was laughing because I was like, okay, universe, I get it. But what that actually did also was that led me to create a space for my clients. So basically, I launched my soul discovery group, which is basically a 2-hour call every month where my clients can ask me whatever random questions they want to ask me that are outside of sessions that are just like quick questions. Then I created like a Telegram group for them and being able to allow them to connect to each other and things like that. Just that one boundary that I set not only led me to be happier because I'm not sitting here answering a whole bunch of emails that are not giving me the energy exchange for my time, but then also I'm making my clients happy by allowing them to have access, but in a way that is basically balanced for both of us, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just one example as to how these things can unfold when you do set those boundaries. That particular situation was different because your heart was screaming at you. It was like, hey, nope, we're not doing this. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be that loud. It's not always going to be that strong. What we want to do is we want to check in so it doesn't have to get loud in order to get our attention. Right?
Right.
Let's talk about the tools for a second. The sound bath, the brain tap, all of that, all of the tools that we use, spiritual tools that we use are all fantastic to help. But there is nothing that will replace the actual work that needs to be done. And all of that work is you. All of that work is you. There is no device, there's no modality that can just pull that out for you. This is a step-by-step thing that you must do. If you're clearing energy, if you're, let's say, attuning to a specific frequency, if you are integrating new light codes, if you're, all of those things, like, of course, like sound baths and all of that really helps with all of that different type of upgrade. The path forward for you specifically is literally every day doing that work, connecting to the heart.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Finding ways to be creative.
Okay.
And I'm just seeing that like once you start doing that, it's going to become like habit. And then like things are just going to just start opening up for you and unfolding.
Okay. So is there anything the guides can share with me about my twin brother?
Sure. Let's take a look. He is part of your soul family. He's the comic relief. And they're saying that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. Your souls have been working together for a long, long time. And your soul is, like I was saying earlier, like you work on one task, you work on another task, and you're always very serious about working on the things that you need to work on. Even if you might procrastinate it for a while and you don't want to work on a certain thing for a while, then you're always back on something else. You've always got something that you are doing. He is the antithesis of that. So he is basically, his soul is like, come on, let's go have fun. Let's go do something that is joyous. Let's go bring this levity to a situation. Let's go have a particular experience that we've never had before. And it's like the two energies together between you and him. It's like you balance each other out. And sometimes there's clashes. Sometimes there's clashes that happen in that. But like for the most part, it's like he really helps bring lightness to what you're doing and helps bring joy. And then you bring a little bit more seriousness to him. And you've been doing this for many, many lifetimes. That it just shows up in different ways, but that has been the nature of your souls.
My heart broke when he died last summer.
Everything that I'm feeling in his energy, he's still there. He's still there. He's still with you.
I feel him, and I felt him lying next to me in bed, holding my hand.
He's always there.
And I channel him. But I still broke.
Yeah, of course. There's an element to our knowledge when we are in this space of understanding that our loved ones don't actually leave us, that they are here with us always. But there is a visceral feeling, and there's that feeling of not being able to hug them, not being able to have them in our space, in our physical space. That is incredibly difficult for us to move through and to accept. There are reasons for him leaving when he did.
I believe that.
Those reasons don't have anything to do with you and your connection. And actually what he's showing me is he's showing me that like you have done this so many times together, you dying first or him dying first. Like it's not a big deal in terms of the overall story of your soul's journeys together. Like you guys have done this hundreds and thousands of times. So it's from that perspective, him leaving first or you leaving first, you always have something going on like that. So it's not having to do with you specifically. This had to do with him. I'm getting that he actually has something that he needs to do in the next lifetime, that he needs to connect with somebody specific. And in order to do so, he needed to leave and then go and reincarnate again, which he will eventually. He's not yet going to do that, but there were some timing things that were aligned.
Mm-hmm. So every night I find myself wanting to be with him and kind of giving up on what my purpose here is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting my heart around it so my mind can stop just wanting to be with him.
It's an interesting correlation, but what they're showing me is this is part of his gift to you, is to show you how you can not only live in the upper realms of spirit, but then also live on this planet. Because the closer and closer we get to connecting into that divine nature, the more and more we want to spend our time there. Right? We want to spend our time in that divine nature. And right now he is fully in that divine nature. So not only are you wanting to spend time with him, but you're wanting to spend time with who he is, where he is right now.
Yeah, he's brought me there and I've seen it and I didn't want to leave.
And that's the whole thing, is that like oftentimes when that happens, yeah, we don't want to leave. And we're like, why are we here? Everything is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
Right? His gift to you is to help you to see the beauty in both places, to show you how you can simultaneously exist in both places. And he's saying to me that you can ask him to show you, have him teach you, have him be the teacher, and have him show you what you specifically need to start really knowing and appreciating all of the things within the human realm.
Okay.
I had recently started realizing that the more I spend time in the records, the more I do this work, the more I have a intolerance for the ugliness of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And my guides put me through a pretty rough little boot camp recently, like showing me, hey, can you stand in non-judgment regarding all of the challenging things that happen in the world? Can you stand in the space of being the observer? Can you be in that space to be able to move through this life, right? Because we're not here to just avoid all of the unpleasantness. We're here to shift and change it and transmute it. In order to do that, we have to move through it. We can't avoid it. The avoidance of unpleasantness, the avoidance of grief, the avoidance of pain, the avoidance of just unpleasant daily things. Those are the things that really challenge us in a lot of ways. Because if you look at that past life that we looked at of yours, where you were just listening to your father, doing whatever he asked you to do, life is easy in that way because you're not questioning everything. You're on autopilot. You're doing everything that you're meant to do because you don't know any different. You don't know that there's some magical place somewhere that you can go and that is 10 times better than what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so once you get that contrast, once you see what is there on the other side, then you're like, oh God, what am I doing here? He's going to help you to see why you're here, where all of that beauty is, and where your soul plays the role in creating that beauty and creating that love. creating that connectedness. Can you imagine a world that every single person on this planet is connected the way that we are right now in this moment? And I'm not even saying that we're fully connected and super tapped in, but we're connected in the way that we're connected in right now in this moment. And can you imagine, though, if every single person on the planet was able to do that?
Yeah, it just popped in my head. It would be really powerful.
And these are just small changes and shifts. Like, this is a small change and shift that I made over the course of the last 12 years. It is possible for all of this to unfold for every single person on this planet. And this is why we're here.
Yeah. Okay.
He's saying, don't worry, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Obviously, time doesn't exist over there. So it's kind of a paradox in a lot of ways, because like, he did have to leave because he has to do something specific, but it doesn't have to be immediately. How did he pass, if you don't mind me asking?
Lung cancer.
Okay.
It was quick, like 6 months.
I can't look into his records, obviously, without his permission. And he's saying that he would give permission, but it's not necessary. The thing that just first came to me was obviously lungs. That's where we hold our grief.
Yeah.
His ability to do what he does and bring levity to things. That's part of his challenge too, though, is that it has been to his detriment in a lot of ways, because he has had these experiences where he hasn't processed the grief. He hasn't done those things that he needs to do to process all of those things. And so this is part of the reason why he wants to help you do that and help you see how you can help other people do that. But I am also seeing that it was his time. He knew it. He knew it was coming, even though he didn't know. But it was like he knew.
We knew as children. He knew that he wasn't going to grow to be an old man.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, 20 is really old, isn't it?
Oh, it's so funny how we think people are old when we're kids, right?
Yeah, but we did have the conversation of grief and holding it on, and that's the lungs. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I felt like he did, like he knew, but he just didn't want to talk about it.
I'm hearing he said he didn't want you to try to fix him. If you knew that he was willing to start working on the grief, you would want to try to work on that with him. And he knew that it was his time to go. So it was like, he knew A, it wasn't going to be for any particular benefit. And then B, he didn't want you to feel like either you tried and you failed to help save him, or that, oh, maybe I could have done something more, all of those things, like all of those things that could have gone on in your head, which did to a certain extent, but it could have been more had he said, okay, yes, it is this. And yes, let's work on it. He's saying, don't worry about that at all.
His reincarnation, is that where he'll work on his grief?
Yes.
Good.
I'm getting that it's a past life thing also. There's a woman that he needs to reincarnate with. And that's why he signed up for a shorter life in this lifetime, is because like he needs to go back with this particular woman and he needs to work through something with her.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. You'll know when he's reincarnated again.
Oh, it will be in my lifetime?
It will be. He'll let you know when. You'll have a conversation about it. You'll know. And it will be when your role together has been completed. So like I said, he's still helping you right now. I'm getting the analogy like somebody teaching you how to ride a bike or skate, and he pushes you and you go, and then you're off and running and you're stable and you're able to ride your bike, and he's standing behind you just like waving at you and you're riding off in the distance. Like, that's the analogy I'm getting. Once you're fully stable and you're on your path, and not that you're not on your path, but like that you're on this new path and that you're mastering what you need to master, and he's done everything he can for you, that's when he's going to go. He wants me to make sure that you know that he's not going to just leave. Like, you're not going to wake up one day and he's going to be gone. You're going to have conversations about it. You're going to know about it. You're going to be a little sad that his energy will be gone, but it will make you feel really happy for what he's doing.
I feel like he'll reincarnate with his son, like his son and whoever his son chooses.
He's not saying anything. He's not telling me, but he just winked. So I usually get that when it's like, yeah, you're not really supposed to know, but I'm going to give you a hint that, yeah, you're probably right. You know, like,
yeah.
I love when I get that. That's so fun.
Well, that will be very healing for his wife and daughter and son.
Mm-hmm.
For him to come back that way.
And just know that you'll connect again. Like I said, you're in the same soul family, so you'll be connecting again. I'm not sure why they're having me go here, but they're asking me about your grandson.
I just love him to pieces. He's wonderful.
I'm going to ask the guides, like, what is the reason why they brought him up specifically? He's connected. Okay, so are they part of the same soul family? They are. Okay. Got it.
Now, wouldn't my daughters also be part of the soul family?
No, just because they're blood family doesn't necessarily mean that they're soul family. So for example, like in my family, my mom and my sister are soul family, but then my father, I had never had an incarnation with him before. This was the first lifetime.
Okay.
It can happen that way. Like it just depends. They are soul family together. But they are not part of your soul family.
Okay.
But it's super interesting because their energy is so similar together. And I'm just seeing them both look up to you going, please tell us, please teach us everything. Please tell us everything that you know. They're a soul group that came much later after yours. So they don't have as much experience being human as you do. It's all relative because you could say, okay, so you've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes and maybe they have had just like 2,000 instead of 7 or something like that. It's all relative, right? It's not a huge difference, but you obviously have more applied knowledge with your connectivity to your soul and to everyone that you connect to on the other side. And so their souls chose you as a mother because they really, really wanted to learn from you. They wanted to have experiences with you. They had known you for quite some time because you have incarnated together before. They really loved the way that you operated as a soul. They wanted to learn how you go through the things that you go through.
They've both given me quite joy, a lot of joy, and also a lot of frustration.
Well, it's like any teacher-student relationship. And that's basically kind of what this is. You're going to get frustrated. You're also going to bring a lot of joy to each other. It's in a space where you're going to need to allow them to grow the way that they are going to grow, not in the way that you want them to grow. Likewise, they have to learn the lessons that you are teaching them and apply them to their own life as they work with their own life. So a lot of times when we learn lessons, we're like, okay, I'm going to learn that lesson and then I'm going to apply it directly to my life. Well, maybe it doesn't apply directly to your life. Maybe it is something that you have to learn from, take the energy of that, and then apply it in a different way in your life. The best analogy they're giving me is like people with addictions. So if you see somebody who's an alcoholic who gets sober, and let's say you've never had a drinking problem in your life, but you see how they have gone through their journey and you're like, oh, wow, that's really impressive that they have had the strength to be able to work through the grief or the pain or whatever it was that was causing them to go through the escape. And then you can turn that around and saying, oh, okay, well, where am I escaping my own life? Like, what am I doing to escape the pain or the fear or the sadness or the grief that I'm avoiding? Maybe you're using technology to escape. Maybe you're using sugar. Maybe you're using other things. It's that kind of situation where it's like, yes, you're learning directly from the person, from their own experiences, but then you have to take it and mold it and make it fit for what you are going through. They're saying that's just an important piece for you to make the distinction for, and that'll help smooth things out between you and them as well.
So I have been reflecting on that this week, me being toxic in a relationship. How is that coming out? What am I doing?
All right. So this is a little mind bendy. Let's see if we can follow the thread here. Let's take the perception of toxicity from others. So if let's say it comes to you and says, you're being toxic, you're doing this, you're doing that, blah, blah, blah. The perception that you're being toxic may not have anything to do with your behavior. It may just have to do with your energy. If you are in a higher energy than Allie, meaning that you're vibrating at a higher energy. This sounds like it's counterintuitive, but it is actually, in fact, how the other person feels in lower energy, looking up to somebody who has a higher energy, can actually perceive that energy as toxic. They're giving me an example from my own life. I was interacting with this particular person several years back, and he was hanging out with this other person who was very clearly toxic. Like I could see her tentacle energy like all over him, and just like, I mean, the whole thing was just oh God, it was gross, actually. I was looking at it and observing it and going, oh my gosh, wow, like she is super duper toxic. And so I mentioned it to him and he was like, I don't see what you're talking about. She's not toxic at all. And I just looked at him and I'm like, oh, he doesn't see it. And then it wasn't until a couple of years later that when I started to work on this type of situation in terms of like my own energy. And I was like, oh, he didn't see it because he's in the exact same energy that she is. I was only looking at her energy. I wasn't looking at his. And so like they're in the same energy. So they're all happy together. They're like, oh yeah, everything's great. And I'm like, oh, wow, ouch. That's not great. Then when I'm looking at my own energy, and I'm like, okay, was I being toxic in this situation? And no, I was not necessarily being toxic in the situation in terms of towards them, but I was actually being toxic to myself because I was actually judging the whole situation and wondering why is it that they're being so toxic? Oh my God, well, they're looking up at me going, wow, well, you're super toxic because you're judging us. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I mean, they didn't say this, but this is all my analysis of the situation. When you are in a higher energy, you can kind of come off as feeling almost that everybody else should be at the same level as you. You have to be able to appreciate and be in a space of non-judgment for where somebody else is going to be and where they're residing. And if is in a place where she's looking at you saying you're toxic, you can say, okay. All right. Where am I judging her for where she is right now? Where am I in a space where I'm sort of playing I'm in a higher perspective than you are. I can see more than you can. Maybe you need to do this, right? Which is so funny because this is exactly the thing that we've been talking about working on, which is not allowing somebody else to come in and say, you need to do this.
Right.
For her, when she's in her own energy, and maybe she has friends and other people around her that are in the exact same energy that she is, none of them are going to think that they're toxic. They're going to be like, yeah, we're all good together because we're all in the same wavelength. We're all in the same energy. And so everything works really harmoniously with all of us. It is when you get somebody who is in a completely different energy that you are, whether it's higher or lower, that's where those discrepancies can start showing us the shadow of the other person.
And I experienced very similar to your story with my boyfriend and his ex-girlfriend. And it would upset me that they'd still contact each other, and they probably still do, until I realized that they're on the same energy. And that was the only thing we really argued about is like, why? Why do you have to stay in contact with her? Other than that, we get along pretty awesome.
And that is something that you also have to consider is that when somebody is in a particular energy, it's not something that is consistent. So, for example, if you are vibrating at, we're going to use numbers, even though numbers mean nothing, but like we're going to use numbers just for the sake of example. If you're vibrating at a 12, let's say, okay, and so that's your general state. You're not always going to be vibrating at a 12. There are times when you might vibrate at a 6. You might go down in levels just based on what you might be going through, or one of the examples that they're giving me right now is sometimes when you go and hang out with your family. When I used to hang out with my mom before I started doing the spiritual work, it's like I would be in my life, living my life, having a great life. And then I'd go see my parents or I'd see my mom. And all of a sudden I'm literally 16 again.
Yeah.
And I'm annoyed and I'm this and I'm that. And it's funny how people from our past can literally make our energy just dip down into where we used to be. It's like a muscle memory. And what they're showing me is that's exactly what happens. So it's like his energy, it's not like he's vibrating at that energy on a regular basis, because if he was, you two would not be able to be together. Like it would just not happen, right? You need somebody who's vibrating at a similar energy to yours. And his is slightly lower than yours, but it is at a level that is congruent enough that you guys can actually exist together. When he speaks to her, it actually lowers his energy to where he used to be when they dated. That's why they're able to get along on that level, because he literally lowers his energy when he connects with her. And that's where you have the problem, is because when he does that, it's like you can see energetically him lower his energy to continue the connection. And so you're like, well, what's the point of that? Why are you even doing that? It makes no sense. It's just similar to, like I was saying with my mom, you connect with somebody and it's familiar and you lower your energy and you have that dynamic, and then that's it. Right? The words I'm hearing are, it's not something to worry about. And eventually he will get to a point where his energy is evolved enough where he will not necessarily want to have those experiences anymore. But that has to be on his own terms.
Yeah. And speaking of energy and moms and all that, I have another trip planned to fly back to Minnesota from Florida for my twin brother's daughter's graduation. And I don't want to go. He says, go. I can hear him yell at me. Big G-O comes into my head. And then we're talking about boundaries, and I haven't pushed buy on my ticket yet. And I just feeling I don't want to. I don't know where that's coming from.
All right. So we're going to connect in with your heart space right now. And we're going to ask to imagine a bright light at the top of your head. And imagine that light is going down through the top of your head, through your brain, all the way through your spinal column, your throat chakra. And let that little point of light land softly in your heart space. And I want you to ask your heart where this resistance is coming from to going to Minnesota for your niece's graduation.
What pops in my mind is seeing their house and being in the kitchen with people everywhere, and I not wanting to be there. I pick up on their sadness. It hurts.
When was the last time you were there and had that situation?
Easter, just 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And what was that energy like?
It was sad, and I miss my brother. I'm in his house and staying couple nights, and there are a lot of tears shed by people, and I can feel it coming off of her and his wife. I can feel it off the kids, and then I feel a sense of obligation because I'm the twin.
Do you ever feel like you're able to express your grief in that moment?
Yes.
The feeling that I'm getting, that the reason why you're having the resistance to going is not only because everybody is feeling the grief and the pain, but also that you don't want to have to take on all of their grief and their pain. You're still trying to get through your own. And I don't know why I keep on hearing, it's almost as if you feel like their grief and pain is more valid or more important than yours.
It hits me harder. So I've been able to transcend and be with him and feel him next to me and watch the covers on the bed move and hear his voice. And I've explained this to my mom to a certain degree. And she's seen a psychic and said, yes, she is talking and she wants that ability, and then is upset that she does not. She can't hear him. So then I am resistant to saying anything. There's very little without upsetting her.
Yeah. So the reason why he's telling you to go is because you can use this as a way for you to practice being in your heart space and your authenticity while going through this particular situation.
And how do I do that?
That means calling out the sadness in a particular moment. I see you standing at, I don't know, it was like a kitchen island or something like that. And I'm seeing your niece there being just kind of sad, and you're not really talking about your brother, but you're just there, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying anything. And they're showing me like you actually saying to her, like, hey, you seem really sad. Are you okay? What are you sad about? What do you want to talk about? And actually being open with that sadness. And then likewise, you can be open with your sadness and how you feel. The thing is that in order for you to hold space for each other and be open to each other, it doesn't mean that you have to share belief systems. All you have to do is share love, share your heart space, share how you're feeling. Some people might be thinking that they need to move on and that they can't mention this anymore because they don't want to make anybody else sad. But the way that you move through this is to bring it up when you're feeling it. The reason why he wants you to go is because he feels like this is going to be very healing for all of you to be able to go through this.
Okay.
There's a particular resistance to really opening this up because, oh, well, at Easter, we don't want to do it at Easter, or it's her graduation. We don't want to do it at a graduation. So it's like it's eking out in pieces and parts, and it's not fully getting discussed, talked about, felt. It's not that you need to force it, but to ask the right questions and to open the right doors is going to allow whoever needs to express. And maybe that's going to be you. Maybe you need to express something. Maybe you need to move through something. And I'm just hearing you not wanting to go is actually an avoidance. And so this is where we have to be very careful. I'm a big believer in not doing anything out of obligation. I don't think we should ever do anything out of obligation, because basically we're going to end up in resentment. So how do you live without obligation? Well, you make the decision that you want to do the thing that you're going to do. You change your energy, you change your perspective of how you're looking at that particular thing. When you are in resistance with something, you have to take a look at why you're in resistance. You have to take a look at, is this something that would actually benefit me and I'm resisting it because I don't want to do it? What are those reasons? Those are the questions you need to ask your heart. And then also, is this the right timing? Because you might be resisting this right now because you're like, you know what? It's just not the right time. I don't want to do this right now. Maybe I can do this in 6 months, but right now I just need to be with myself and I need to work through the things that I need to work through. I need to deal with my own life. That is a decision that you can make.
But Matt wants me to go.
He's saying it is your choice. He is also saying that it will be incredibly healing for you. And it'll be incredibly healing for the family. But he does want you to go. Yeah, he is saying that he does. And we're talking about this the whole session, people telling you what to do.
Right.
And even though he's in spirit, he's still a person telling you what to do. So just because he's on the other side and he knows more than you, does that mean that you have to listen to him? No, it really doesn't. Because either way, you're going to learn what you need to learn. You're going to go through what you need to go through. Either way, it's just a matter of, are you going to do it now or are you going to do it later?
I got it. Yeah.
Do you have any other questions about your boyfriend?
Yeah, we've been together for 10 years and kind of wondering where it's going.
So do they have soul contracts together? They do. He signed up to ascend with you. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing you sitting there tapping your foot, looking at your watch.
On his ascension process or something else?
Ascension process. Yeah. The other thing that's actually just 3-dimensional desires that has nothing to do with your actual soul contract, but it's a little bit of both, because the thing is that it's almost like you're both waiting to see if he jumps on board. And if he does jump on board, if he gets it, then you can move forward. And if he doesn't, you're going to have to make a decision. And your soul is like, I don't know how long I give this. What is his stance at the moment in the whole spiritual realm?
He's grown actually tremendously from when I first met him. In June, I'm going to New York. We are going to New York. I'm going to go see Lee Harris.
I love Lee Harris. He's amazing. Yeah.
I love him too. And there were 2 seats. There's M1112, which I was going to buy but he's like, that's not my thing. It's not my jam. I will go there with you. I'll make sure you get there safely. I'll be outside the doors when you get out. 3 hours later, I'm in seat M111, and I'm like, you know what? Whoever sits next to me is going to be my best friend for life. He's like, well, let's see if it's still available. And it wasn't.
They're saying that that's just about your own expectations. So like you had kind of placed these expectations that whoever's going to sit next to you is going to be somebody that you would know for life, that kind of thing. That was not something that you connected to in your intuition and from your heart. That was just something you said.
Yeah, to get his goat. Passive aggressive.
So don't place any weight to that. And the person who's sitting next to you, if you're meant to talk to them, if you're meant to connect with them, you will. If you don't, you won't. But don't force it.
Yeah.
Because they're saying to me that prior to knowing this, you may have forced trying to get to know this person because you're like, oh, well, they're sitting next to me. People are going to gravitate towards different things. So you can see his soul growth. You can see how much he's moved and changed. And just because he doesn't want to necessarily see Lee Harris doesn't mean that he's not able to move forward on his path. So you have to allow him to move forward on his path the way that he's going to, not the way that you want him to. Over the course of my spiritual awakening, I have gravitated towards various different practitioners. So There was a time when I would watch Dolores Cannon and I would be like, you're making my brain explode. I can't even handle the information you're giving me, and now after working in the records as long as I have, now I watch Dolores Cannon and I'm like, yeah, totally get that. And even some of the things she says, I'm like, I think that's old information. I think that's stuff that was from back then. And I don't think that applies to now. Now I'm able to look at the information with much more discernment and I can apply it based on what I've seen myself. But you can see the difference in like how I would react to it back then and how I react to the information now. And so you have to kind of look at it from that perspective. Like he might look at Lee Harris right now and be like, I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. And he might see somebody else and say, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then it's the stepping stones that you need to make to get to where you are. It's a combination of not judging where he is and letting him have his own path, but then also paying attention to his energy and how much he is growing along with you. And there's going to come a point in time where if there's too much of a discrepancy between your energies, you might have to part ways. But that is still undetermined.
Yeah.
And as long as you continue to see him growing, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay.
I think it's if he starts stagnating or if he stops growing or if he starts regressing, that's when you have to start paying attention.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Annette, so much. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. I'm going to close the Akashic Records. I want to thank Akula, my Akashic guide, for being here. Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for allowing us access to the records today. The records are closed. The records are closed. The records are closed. Thank you. I would like to thank Shannon for allowing me to record her session for the podcast. We have a lot to cover. There are so many beautifully rich topics in this particular session. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about not letting other people influence your life. This is an important thing to connect to, mainly because this happens day in and day out with almost every single person in your life. How many times do you talk to a friend or a family member and they're telling you what to do? Well, I think you should do this based on what you're telling me. Well, I think it's better for you to do this. Oh, I think you should break up with that person. I think that you should XYZ, whatever you want to fill in the blanks there. This is based in the person's judgment of the situation. And while they may be right about what they're saying, you don't know that they're right about what they're saying until you check in with your heart. And that's what we were connecting to with Shannon, is making sure that whatever it is that the suggestion is, and even if the suggestion is coming from a very loving place, is it right for you? Is that your path? Because sometimes when people make these suggestions, they're basing it on purely three-dimensional things. And we all know there is a lot more going on behind the scenes energetically than any of us even realize. When it comes to what you are doing on a day-to-day basis, when it comes to big life decisions, big and small things, always check in with your heart. And if your heart says yes, then yeah, go ahead and do that thing. Now, the benefit to people giving you this information is that maybe your loved ones are giving you something that you haven't thought of before, which is great because that just gives you better and more ideas. And so those ideas you can run by your heart space, run by your higher self and your angelic team, and see what the purpose of that suggestion was. Was it a seed being planted by somebody you know, or even just a stranger? Sometimes these things can come in from people you don't even know. Or is it something that that person was working through in their journey and they were projecting that onto you? That's a very important distinction to make. What is the motivation? Do they have your best interest at heart? Are they speaking from their own wounding? Or are they truly giving you a suggestion based on what they know about you in this present moment? And that's an important distinction as well. Are they giving you suggestions based on who you used to be versus who you are now? Because the advice that maybe my friends or loved ones would give me 10 years ago might be completely different than the advice they would give me now, because I'm a vastly different person now than I was back then. And if the person that you are getting the advice from or the suggestion from hasn't grown with you, or if they're not even aware of the growth that you have achieved since the last time you connected, then you have to assess that that suggestion or that idea is coming from a place in the past, and maybe that won't serve you. Now, I know this might sound exhausting that you have to go through all of this every single time somebody makes a suggestion to you, but I promise it becomes second nature after a while. After a while, you start checking in real time, and you start feeling the truth of what this is coming from. You start to understand the energy that it's coming from as the words are coming out of the person's mouth. So it just takes practice with checking into your heart space. It takes practice with being able to connect in on a regular basis to make sure that you are living your most sovereign life. And what this does for us is it allows us to clear the decks, so to speak. It allows us to clear out any energy that doesn't belong. And that includes energy of loved ones. Just because we love them and they're in our lives doesn't mean that we need to carry their energy. We should all be sovereign in our own energy and be able to carry out our missions or our jobs, so to speak, as a soul without the psychic debris of others. So this brings us to the next topic, which is when we connect into our heart space and when we connect into the higher realms and we start connecting into our psychic nature, it's really, really amazing being there. For those of you who have gotten a session with me, you know that feeling. When we're in the records, it's beautiful and it's peaceful and it's loving. It's a wonderful energy. And one of the things that Shannon was talking about was that she didn't want to leave when she was connecting in with her brother. She wanted to continue speaking to him and spending time with him. And although we can certainly do that, we can spend time with our crossed over loved ones. I certainly spend time with my father, but it's not every day and it's not all the time. I connect in with him here and there. Not too long ago, I was at a concert and he was with me and we got to watch this concert together and it was a really beautiful experience. So you can have these experiences, but then also we are here to live this 3D life. There's a reason why we came here. And if you don't know why you came here, that is something that I can certainly help you with. Soul purpose and life purpose is something that I help clients with every day. The reason why you are here on this planet is to achieve something for your soul, as well as for the collective. Yes, you can spend your entire life trying to avoid conflict, trying to avoid contrast. If avoiding that contrast or avoiding those challenges prevent you from growing and accomplishing the things that you came here to accomplish, then essentially you're probably just going to come back again and do it all over again, and you're going to have to face those same challenges. So my philosophy is you might as well face those challenges now rather than put them off till later. When you come into your psychic gifts, which every single one of you will at some point, one of the first things that I certainly did was I started using my psychic gifts to try to avoid any sort of unpleasantness there was in my life. And that's not how this works. You can ask your angels and guides and you can ask your higher self, what is my highest timeline? So that does avoid any unnecessary challenges that you might come across that really don't serve your purpose in any way. Those are the types of things that you can avoid and is probably really good to avoid because it doesn't lower your vibration. It is all about balance, always, when it comes to spending the time in the 3D, spending the time in the 5D, connecting to your angels and guides. I have been there before where I have been spending too much time on the other side, where I was doing too many Akashic Record sessions because it was easy for me. I could do it. It doesn't exhaust me at all. I channel that divine energy and I feel great. The problem is that I was spending so much time on the other side that it was making my 3-dimensional life more difficult. And that can happen. So that's why tapping into what it is that you need at any given moment. Do you need more grounding? Do you need more alone time? Do you need more time with your loved ones? Tapping into that information will help you in any given moment. Let's talk about soul family and soul groups. I know I've covered this on the podcast a long, long time ago, but I feel like it's worth mentioning again for those of you who may not have listened to that episode, or if you are still just learning some of the terminologies that we discuss here on the podcast. Soul family is a group of souls that essentially individualize from divine source energy to become a particular being. In our case, it's human. So if you can imagine a bubble sort of individualizing from a larger bubble, and inside that bubble are 200, 300, 400 souls. And within those souls, each individual soul has a particular job. The entire soul family, so all of those few hundred souls, all have a similar goal or a similar purpose. So let's say the goal is to anchor in forgiveness on the planet. All of those hundreds of souls, that is their main focus. Now, they may have different jobs in that respect. So maybe a couple of the souls are not going to incarnate at all on the planet. Maybe their job is to stay on the other side and guide the rest of the soul family. Maybe some of the other souls are transmuters. Maybe some of the other souls are creators. You'll all have different jobs within that particular sphere. The thing about soul family that people often mistake is they feel that if somebody is part of my soul family, they are going to be someone or a soul who is completely harmonious, almost like a soulmate. We kind of think about it in terms of that. Somebody who is helping me, somebody who is loving, somebody who is going to help me. And that's not necessarily the case. I have seen many times where members of soul families come in to shake things up, to help you with a particular challenge by being more challenging. Just because somebody is part of your soul family doesn't mean that they are going to be the best person in the world for you. They could be the toxic person in your life. And you might ask, why would that happen? Like, why would a member of my soul family be toxic? Well, they're giving you the experience that you need. There are always experiences that we need in this life, and what better way to get those experiences than from a soul that you know really, really well. And that's the thing, we incarnate with our soul family over and over and over again. We have likely had hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of lives with our soul family. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we incarnate with our soul family all the time. Sometimes we'll incarnate with just a few members of our soul family. Maybe sometimes we will have hundreds of members of our soul family in our lives. It just really depends on what it calls for. Now, this brings me to the question of actual family. Can you have members of your soul family in your blood relative family? Yes, you certainly can, but it's not always the case. So there is a possibility that members of your family are not even part of your soul family. So then you have the idea of soul groups. And soul groups are an entirely larger portion of the whole. So if you imagine you have one soul family and they're working on forgiveness, and let's say you have another soul family and they're working on unconditional love, and you have another soul family and they're working on something else, the collective of all of those soul families create a soul group. And within this group, they may have an overarching purpose. Some soul groups have the ability to change the course of history. Some soul groups have the ability to transmute energies en masse in multiple places all over the galaxy in a split second. Some soul groups have the ability to create planets and worlds and stars. Each soul group has a particular soul signature based on where they originated from divine source energy, based on where they went after that, and the experiences that they have as a collective. Now, can some soul groups break off from other soul groups and sort of create different soul groups? Yes, of course. Our soul families overlap from time to time. So you might have two soul families that are intersecting, and in that intersection, those souls will be interacting, sharing that information that they have each gathered. It is an important distinction to make, because there are times when you might feel somebody is in your soul family, and then you find out that they're not, and you're wondering why that is, because it feels like they would be in your soul family. That's part of the reason there could be that intersection of different soul families. So maybe you have been incarnated with this person for a long time, but didn't realize it. There are so many concepts that are shared with you on this planet that are difficult to explain in the terms that you can understand. But one of the things that we would like to impart on you is that your physical knowledge of these things isn't as important as the knowledge of what you are here to do personally. The overarching concepts of soul families and soul groups are important from the perspective of knowing who somebody is to you, and maybe that will help you along your path. But all of the higher concepts of the higher realms cannot truly be described in your human language. So we would like to leave it at that to help you understand a little bit more about soul groups and soul family, but also understand that it is not necessary for you to completely comprehend these concepts in order to fulfill your soul and life purpose. Okay, thank you so much. Akula, yes. Okay. So it was funny, like that happens from time to time, which is I'll be in the middle of speaking and then Akula will just take over the channel to give me the information that we need. So thank you, Akula, for that. So the last topic I want to discuss is about toxic relationships or people who are being toxic to you. We did a fair bit of explanation of this in the session. I do want to clarify some things in terms of how this comes into fruition for somebody who is dealing with toxic energy. If somebody comes to you and they are berating you, being mean to you, bullying you, trying to control you, any of those things, the most important thing is to take a step back. That is step one. Take a step back, remove yourself from the situation. Then it is time to assess what is going on. Is this person being toxic because they always have been toxic and you're just now realizing it? Is this person going through something really tough? And are they trying to express themselves and they are not doing a very good job of it? Have you known this person to be a very loving person in the past? But for some reason, they are just in this really icky, toxic energy. There are so many different factors that can come into play when it comes to this type of energy. And as we discussed in Shannon's session, it can be both sides that create this toxic energy. And what it is, it's a mirror. It's a mirror for the people that you are interacting with. So if you are experiencing toxic energy from someone, as we said in the session, that's a way that you can take a look at yourself and say, okay, where is it that I'm showing up in this toxic energy? Why is this being shown to me? Does the toxic energy that you're receiving make you really angry and then you retaliate and start being really angry at the person, the situation, thereby creating your own toxic energy? It's almost as if the person just handed you their toxic energy and you said, yeah, cool, I'll take that, and you run with it. The point of this type of energy is to show you where you need to do the work. And the only way that you can do that is if you take a step back first and identify, is this my energy? Is this not? Am I going to perpetuate this energy or am I not? Can I forgive this person for acting the way that they did and continue to keep my distance, but understand that they are going through what they are going through? The other aspect of this is about the energy of the person. And we did talk about this in the session a lot, which is when somebody is in a different frequency than you, it can be perceived as toxic because it is not in the same energy that you are. It's not necessarily good or bad. It just is. So in the example that I used from my own life, those two people I was talking about, they were having a great time. But what was happening within me was quite different. And that's because my energy was just so different from theirs. And that'll happen. You'll come across people in your life where you just don't gel or you don't mesh because your energies are so vastly different. And there's nothing wrong with that. That just simply means that maybe that person isn't meant to be in your life at that time. Maybe they'll come back to your life at another point, but maybe they won't. But that's okay. because other people can come in and be in that beautiful aligned energy with you. Is it necessary to experience toxic relationships or energies? No. There's a difference between toxic and challenging. Challenging allows us to evolve and grow. Toxic is basically just handing somebody a giant ball of low energy. And if you take that lower energy, you're going to be in that exact same space that they are. And sometimes when somebody is being toxic towards you, that's exactly what they want, because they feel like you're far away from them energetically. And they want you to be on the same page as them. So they try to be unconsciously more connected to you by giving you this toxic energy. Oftentimes, it's not something that they do consciously. It's just something that happens. So step 1, take a step back. Step 2, assess the situation. Is this an energetic thing? Is the person going through something? What is it that I need to do at this moment? Do I need to continue to take a step back? Do you feel like you can engage again, or do you need time? And then the hardest part of this whole process is when you see this person again, you cannot approach them from the energy of the past. You have to be able to meet them exactly where they are in the present moment. So if you go to this person and you want to try to connect with them again, but you're sitting there thinking, they're going to be toxic again. I know they're going to be toxic. I know they're going to be toxic. They're going to show up and they're going to be toxic. Or you're going to show up and you're going to be toxic, and maybe they've healed from this. So you need to be able to allow them to grow and change. And if you show up again and they show up in that toxic energy again, then you can feel free to take another step back and not engage again until you feel guided to engage again, if that is the guidance. A lot of people will complain and complain and complain about toxic energies, about people being toxic. This person is toxic. That person is toxic. That person is a narcissist. That person is, it's rampant. And me personally, I have a really big problem with the overuse of the word narcissist, simply because it seems to be the catch-all for just bad behavior. So I want you to be very, very sure when you are addressing a particular person or situation that you are checking in with your heart space as to what the situation actually is in this present moment. And I know this sounds funny from somebody who's constantly looking at past lives, but stop living in the past. Stop being in that past energy and allow yourself and others to move forward and grow. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I look forward to connecting with you next week for another brand new episode.
If you're enjoying this podcast, it would be really amazing if you could like, share, and subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify, feel free to give it a review if you feel called. If you are following me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you are notified for every single new episode of the Akashic Recordings. If you feel called to book a session with me, you can always reach me at infinitesoullove.com, and you can book directly on my website. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.